Hey, everybody, welcome to Taking Back Monday. I am so excited to introduce you to this week's guest. Welcome, Suzanne.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit more about how you help entrepreneurs move from feeling overwhelmed to truly thriving in their business and personal lives.
Absolutely. So I think the biggest thing is the fact that everyone thinks that you just have to do the thing, right? You have to get up, you have to punch the clock, you have to do the job, you have to do the work to be able to have a successful business. And what they don't understand is that when you're focusing so heavily in just your business, everything else goes to hell in a handbag, right? Your personal life suffers, your relationships, your relationship with yourself, your self care, your wellness, all those things kind of track down because if you think of the sense of there's only so many hours in the day and all of those hours are being given to one thing and one thing only, what time do you have left? It's the same thing with energy. When you're working inside of a company, and you are, putting all of your time and your efforts and all of your love and passion and all of that directly into the business, that energy has to come from somewhere, just like the time has to come from somewhere. So it just pulls from everything else. So what's really important is that you realize that there is more to business than just the business. And to also create kind of a disconnect from the business because everyone treats their business like their baby. But I'm here to say, cut the umbilical cord. It's not your baby. It's your
Right.
income, right? So you have to treat it as such and create enough of a space in between those two things to not have the rest of your life be kind of dragged down because you just don't have time or energy left after you're just focusing on the one thing. It's important to focus on everything at once, but to do it in a way where it just doesn't feel so damn hard. Business should be easy. It should flow. If it's not flowing because you're hitting friction, and, from a girl with thick thighs, I can tell you friction sucks. Okay. I'm not a big fan of friction. So it should flow, it should be easy, and it should be a process that feels passionate and comfortable. And if it's not feeling that way, it's because there's conflict that needs to be resolved.
Yeah, I was talking to someone recently who talked about the difference between owning a business and owning a job, right? If you're the business owner, it's not your job to do all of the things inside the business. Your job is to own the business. But if you're just going to own a job, then that's going to become a very dragging experience. It's not going to be as fulfilling as if you just had a job where someone else got to worry about all of the issues like cash flow and other employees. But if you're buying a business, then you're really looking at how do you take your passion and diversify and expand yourself so that you can own the business and not own the job.
Exactly.
And another thing that you said that struck me, I was going through a process recently where I'm applying for a certification for my small business, and they asked me, what are the hours of operation for your business? And it struck me that I didn't have a great answer to that question. The answer 24/7. Is that really what you're looking for? What are you looking for? When do I see clients? Well, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. When do I work on my business? All the time, right? And the idea that you have to figure out how do you create that separation because absolutely parts of my life have suffered. I, maybe don't see my friends as much as I want to. Maybe don't see get to go to my kids' things as much as I would want to, right? So figuring out how you create that separation. So on that note, what are some of the root causes or challenges that you've seen in your clients' lives when they're trying to create that healthy separation?
Letting go is the hardest thing for anybody to do. It's like sending your kid to kindergarten. When you are talking about delegation or talking about releasing things that are not money making activities, it is still so hard because there's that perfectionist that comes in. And that perfectionist syndrome, unfortunately, comes from imposter syndrome. It's coming from that place of if I don't do it, if it's not done by me, it's not going to be what it needs to be. It's not going to be fucking perfect. And unfortunately, when you get into that mentality, you get stuck. Um, the pressure that people put on themselves as a business owner to get it all done themselves and not to delegate is the hardest thing for people to let go of. It is the thing that I run into with every single person I had ever worked with, and I've been coaching for over 20 years. And it is the number one thing that people have the hardest time doing. Release. Just the release. Because once they release, they realize, oh my God, this is so much nicer. This is great. When I found a CRM system that did all of my automation and I didn't have to send out all of these follow-ups and everything, I was like, they're like, can you give us a review? I'm like, yeah, if the thing would pour me wine, I'd marry it. Like, that's my review because it does everything. It does all the things that I don't want to do. And I
Yeah.
appreciated that so much. And it could be a system, it could be a person, but delegation is that number one hardest thing people deal with. They just don't want to let go.
And I think it's important to delegate the things that you either A, don't enjoy, or B, aren't the best at. Right. So I saw a TikTok recently that was like, Jeff Bezos doesn't mow his own lawn, right? He delegates that. Someone else does that for him. Right. And thinking about, keeping the passion, the things that you maybe got into the business for in the first place. Like, what are the things that you truly enjoy and the things that give you that passion and that spark versus saying, hey, I really hate this piece. This piece drives me crazy. I can't do it. I have to force myself to do it. How do you find someone, to fill that gap for you or to take on that responsibility? Delegate the things that you hate. Don't delegate the things you enjoy.
Exactly. And there's a lot more that people don't like, or it's just not a money making activity. So it's not
Yeah.
just about like or not like, because you could love to do something, but it's not making you money. So you have to look at the things that are what's the things that are making you money, and that's where your focus needs to be. And if it's something that you love to do, collaborate with the person that's doing the work so that you can have that say in it, like overall say in like the entire process, and make sure that it's being done the way that you want it to be, and still be part of that process, but not do all of the nitpicky pieces. Um,
Yeah.
so if you like content, content can be a daunting task for people. When I create content, I create 365 days of content in a week. In a week.
Okay, tell me your secret. Like, how do you do that? Because content is one of those things for me where I joke with people. If I could create all the content, but never have to post it or let anybody else hear it or see it, I'd be perfectly happy and content. But like, that's not the reason we're making content, right? It's not making money. So
Correct.
how can we take these things and scale them into a single week that can
It's
expand into a full year?
absolutely. So it doesn't need to be as scary as people think, but what you need to do is you need to break things down into bite-sized pieces. Stop trying to eat the whole cow, right? Eat the burger.
Mm,
Don't stress yourself over like this large spectrum of like, oh, well, if I have to make like an entire year's worth of content, this is going to take me a year, right? It doesn't need to. What you need to define first is what do your clients want to hear? What do they need to hear from you? How are you going to communicate that to them? And how are you going to educate them? Because that's what it comes down to. Clients buy when they're educated properly every single time. So your content needs to be education based. It needs to teach about some kind of like little microscopic, little micro piece of something that you do that's going to give them just enough to say, "Oh, okay, now I need to know. I need to know more. I need to learn more. I need to get deeper into this because I need to know how to, for example, make content for an entire year in a week so that I'm not pulling my hair out trying to deal with content. Um, it doesn't have to be hard. Nothing that you have to do has to be hard, but especially with content, you have to make sure your messaging is super clear and you're an expert. You're an expert at your shit. That's the reason why you do what you do, right? So what you have to make sure is that you're showing that expertise. You're teaching the people that you're talking to something of value, and you're breaking it down to these microparticles that they can absorb it. And when you're creating content, you always have to remember, number one thing, talk to it talk to the person like they're a kid. I like to say, break it down Barney style. Break it down to make it Sesame Street kind of easy. It's got to be something that is easy. It's easy to digest. It's relatable. It's something that is going to help them with solving a problem that you solve. But it's along the side of what it is that you do. So you don't want to give them everything, but you want to just give them a little piece of something that's going to help them along that way. And honestly, you could probably talk about that stuff for about 6 hours, and just take that one recording, break it up, pull out
mm.
pieces, create from the content from just one big video. And you'd be surprised on how much you'd be able to create just from that. And then flat images and conversation starters and all of those types of things are other ways that you can kind of combine those things into each other. It shouldn't all be just video. It shouldn't all just be one thing. You got to just make sure you're using a mashup of different things. But as you're using the mashup of different information, everything comes to relating a message. Everything comes to education and help for your clientele.
So, a lot of our listeners are business owners, so that makes total sense for them. But what about some of our listeners who are in a corporate environment? How a lot of our listeners are actually customer facing roles like sellers, marketing, customer success. What can those people learn from that idea of building relationships digitally and through a screen using kind of content as the medium?
Absolutely. So if you're working in a company, I mean, the biggest thing for I would typically say is always make sure that you're taking the job that you have, whatever job that you have, and make sure that you're doing the things that are fulfilling to you within that job role. So if you are, a really big person that loves to be really out there with people and really connected and all of that type of stuff, make sure that you're networking. Make sure that you get out there and you connect with people in that space, so that you can actually create the connections that are meaningful to you. And surprisingly enough, in those conversations is where you will find the ways to create content. Um, so I like to say that the universe has a funny way of being able to kind of show us the things that we need to see when we need to see them. And we have two choices: listen or wait till she says it 3 more times and then bitch slaps us with it.
Okay.
So I always say listening is always better. The bitch slap hurts. So take some time to look at the conversations that you're having. So even if you're not like an owner of a company, but you're a salesperson in a company or you're a representative in a company and you're looking to like kind of grow your own reach, look at the conversations that you're having. What are the client conversations that you're having right now that seem to be frequent? It's the same type of things that keep coming up with those clients. That means that's a trend. That's a trend for your people. So when you're creating content, think back through those trends and be able to kind of come back with how were you able to find solutions for those people?
Yeah, I think that's really important too, because just because you're not the owner doesn't mean you can't start to build that personal brand. Because, people buy from people. They're looking to connect with somebody. So we talked a little bit about, if it's not a money making activity, you got to let it go. How do you balance personal enjoyment or personal fulfillment and corporate or career or business success?
Absolutely. Well, I can tell you for me personally, I only work 3 days a week. That was my choice. I was like, I want a 4-day weekend every weekend. But if you're not a business owner, that might not be an option. So if you have to work like, typical 9 to 5, or you have to punch that clock, you definitely want to look at making sure that you're making the most of your time. Now, when, I'm going back a very, very long time because I've been self-employed for over 20 years. But when I was working for somebody else, I was running myself into the ground. I was working
Mm.
7 days a week. I wasn't taking time off. I was like, their brand was basically my baby and I had to take care of it. So I can tell you, don't ever do that. It doesn't look good on anybody and it's not your responsibility to do. So make sure that you take on only the roles and only the things that you are responsible for. If it's something that you are not responsible for, but it is something that would be helpful for your job inside of the company, talk to the higher up. Make sure that they're aware of those situations so that they can fix it. Do not put extra burdens on your plate. Always make sure of that. Because a lot of times we take extra things that we want to do because we're like, oh, but it's going to help my job, but it's going to help my job. Actually, it's helping the company. It's not helping your job, it's helping the company. So make sure that you're sending it back to the company and letting them have the responsibility of those things that are going to help your job. Okay. Separate that entirely. But also make sure that you are taking your downtime. The way that I typically start my day, I get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Yes, I know. Everyone does that. Everyone does that. But there's
Wow.
a reason. There's a reason. So I get to wake up at 3 a.m. It's before anybody in the world needs me. My phone is not ringing. Nobody's emailing me. My kids aren't up yet. The dog's not barking yet. Nobody needs me, right? That's my time. So I get up at that time. I get in my workout. I get ready for work for the day. But then I also will take time and I will write down my gratitude. I'll write down 10 things that I'm grateful for that day. I meditate on those things and then I'll go into a energy protection meditation or a planning meditation for like the upcoming week. Um, and then I grab a cup of tea and I watch the sunrise over the ocean. And I start my day like that every single day. So I get that nice, peaceful way to be able to start my day. So if you're starting your day in chaos, stop it. If nothing, don't start your day in chaos. Make sure you give yourself enough time to get up in the morning and do something for yourself before you leave for the office, whether you're self-employed or whether you are working for someone else. Make sure you are giving yourself the time to just be in your own energy before you have to mix that energy with other people. And at the end of the day, do the same, some type of separation. If you work at home, that's really hard for some people. So I can say I would usually I would get up and I would go out for either a walk, I would go into my garden, I would go for a car ride, I would go do something else that makes me feel like I got up and I clocked out. I left for the office for the day, which means no more emails, no more phone calls, no more texts, no more nothing. I'm clocked out. This is my family time. So you just make sure that you create that separation for yourself, because the time that you're going to find when you are not sitting there thinking, well, I got to do this for work tomorrow. And I got to do this for work tomorrow. When you're not thinking about that stuff, you'll be surprised at how much time you actually have to do stuff that you want to do for yourself.
Yeah, and we've been talking about the individual and what we can control as ourselves. Let's flip it to the leader. So I'm a leader in a company, whether I'm the owner or team leader, depending on, the size of the company. And I want to create an environment where my team can truly perform to the highest level. What tips do you have for the leader who wants to create an environment that not only welcomes this kind of individual protection, but also creates an environment that drives it?
Oh, without question. Well, first of all, I can say I do collaborate a lot with coaches, but other coaches that do services that I don't offer. Cultural Apex Coach, I think, is the number one person for that type of work, because Kim is just absolutely amazing, and she helps people fall in love with Mondays, in that sense where she comes in and works with companies to create that type of environment. But I can say some of the things that I have learned from her have been about really making sure that the priorities and the goals of the person are taking a front seat. Because when you are working as a leader, the people that are working for you don't really care as much about the company as they care about themselves, right? And it's not that they're being selfish or anything like that, but when they're home on the weekends, they want to think about the things that they want to do. They don't want to think about the office. They don't want to think about the job. So make sure that you incorporate those things into the organization. Make sure you're incorporating the person's personal goals into the organization, as I say. One of the things that I absolutely love doing is almost everybody knows the 5 love languages. There is the 5 languages of appreciation in the workspace. And I think that if you are a leader and you have not read that book, I think it is really powerful and impactful book. And it shows you exactly how to get to the point of appreciating the people that are working in the organization and how to create a connection to that person that they feel appreciated. I use it a lot for actually creating, packages inside of companies for like perk packages and things like that, because everyone's like, oh yeah, we'll give them a perk package. Well, we'll give them this and we'll give them this. And I'm like, that's great. But like, if the person is this type of a person, that isn't fitting for them. So if they are not
Right.
a quality time person and you're saying, have lunch with the CEO, they're just like, no thanks. They're like, give me something that I actually want. So it's really important to know what it is that drives your people to move forward, so that you as a leader can create that cohesive environment to do that.
I think that's so, so important advice. And definitely everyone who's listening, check out that book. For me, I turned down really high paid opportunities coming out of college because I wanted to do something that mattered. So I joined a startup where every single day my decision had an impact. Every single day I would do something that, actually mattered to the company and like made a difference, right? And my perception was that inside of a corporate environment that I couldn't do that, or would have less of an impact, right? Not necessarily true, but that was my perception at the time. And you can Also see my dog who's decided it's playtime.
He's
So
your
let's just say
manager. It's
about that.
fine.
That's
He's
okay. Yeah,
making sure you're on task.
yeah, he's like, come on, let's play ball. But how do let's fast forward a year, and I or another listener I've achieved it. I've found success and balance. What now? How do I sustain that success and that balance?
Maintaining is one of the hardest parts. It's not actually getting there, it's maintaining it. So just like any journey that we're on, you can always achieve the thing you're trying to achieve, but then keeping up with that is one of the hardest things to do. And that could be in anything that we're trying to do, whether it be a personal goal or even like wellness and weight loss. Once we get to a certain point, we're like, well, cool, we hit the goal. But then it's like, but now we have to maintain it. That is where it gets critical. Um, so really, like during the process of working with me, typically people will go through and figure out what are the things that are important to them. What are the things that they're doing that are not important to them? And letting go of limiting belief systems. Because majority of the time, the things that are preventing you from keeping on a good track or hitting your goal or even maintaining after you've hit your goal, most of that comes directly from a limiting belief system that isn't even yours. It's something that you've been taught. Um, we actually spend about 27 to 29 years of our lives living in limiting belief systems that were basically from our great, 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 great grandparents. Disgusting, right? So for some of us, we're talking, pre-time of, Great Depression where everything was scarcity. So we just were brought up with a mindset of scarcity. So there's never enough. It's never going to happen. All of those limiting beliefs that really prevent us from hitting and achieving our goals. And for the people that hit their goals, it's usually because they have something underneath that is pushing them forward. And it's usually not something that's good. It's usually not just like personal power or willpower. The personal power and willpower come from a place of trauma. It comes from a place of you have to, so do it. Or it comes from a place of, well, you'll never be able to do it. And now you want to prove people wrong. It doesn't come from a place of, oh, well, I know I can do better. I know I can help people. I just want to do that. For the people that are there, it's usually because they've already gone through and healed their trauma. But for the majority of people, they're not there yet. So a lot of the friction and the issues that people come into that maintenance comes back to that limiting belief system, which is why that's the first thing that I tackle with people is we work through all of those things first so that you can stay on task to achieve your goal. And then it makes it super easy to be able to maintain your goal from there.
I think that makes a lot of sense. The buzzword these days is imposter syndrome, right? Very much rooted in that idea of, I can't do it, so I guess I won't, or I can't do it, or you think I can't do it, but I'm going to prove you wrong, right? So let's switch gears to intuition. So a lot of the world's best business leaders just seem to have this natural instinct when it comes to what to do next and how to do it and where the direction is pointing. If I want to develop that intuition, how can I create that skill?
Absolutely. So everybody has intuition. If you've ever met somebody and you got butterflies in your stomach, like really big ones, and then you were like, oh my God, this person must be my person because like I got butterflies, right? I was super excited. And then the relationship totally crashed and burned. That's your intuition. Believe it or not, the butterflies are not a good thing. The butterflies are letting you know something's wrong. We don't listen to it because we're told something else, right? Um, just like if you've ever heard of the phrase, blood is thicker than water, that's not the whole phrase. The whole phrase is the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. It's a perspective. So when you actually look at it, it's saying the exact opposite of what everybody says that it is. Everything comes down to just having a different understanding and sitting with things to be a little bit more open-minded. Intuition is no different. Intuition is something you have to sit with to be able to allow it to be and to allow it to open up. You just have to pay attention because it's there. It's being very clear with you. It's not holding back. Like I said, universe likes to bitch slap when you ignore her. Um, you're going to get repetitive messages. You're going to get things that are coming to you, same lessons. If you notice you're having the same types of relationships, you notice you're having the same types of friendships, you're in the same kind of a job all the time. It's because you're being shown you haven't learned your lesson yet. So what lessons are you supposed to be learning? As you start paying closer and closer attention and you're more mindful, your intuition will just naturally start to kind of tap in and start to flourish.
Yeah, absolutely. So, let's say I want to apply one practical tip from you in my life. What is the one thing you would advise me or any of our listeners to do that would make a positive change that we can do right away?
Absolutely. Be mindful. Journal at night. Take some time at the end of your day and write down the activities that happen throughout the day. Everything. I mean, really get deep into that. And then take some time to reflect on the lesson that the day was trying to show you. That will absolutely help you without question to be able to be more mindful of how your day went, how good it could have gone, and what things can you change moving forward to be in your awareness a little bit more.
Amazing. So if one of our listeners really connected with you and wants to follow up, where can they find you online?
Absolutely. So right on my website, youralignmentproject.com.
Awesome. And then the last question we ask everybody, who in the world is really taking back Monday? Who else should we be talking to?
I'm going to definitely have you talk to Kim. It's literally her tagline is, love Mondays again. And I'm like, yes, I gotta introduce you guys.
I think the universe is trying to tell us that we need to know each other.
Absolutely, without question. So I'm going to introduce you to Kim Laughlin. She is absolutely phenomenal. She's a cultural apex coach, and she helps companies fall in love Mondays again.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Suzanne, for taking the time to chat with us on Taking Back Monday.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate you.